Welcome, Martin. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
My name is Valerian Banu. I'm a seasoned product manager, and I'm one of the founders of Product Makers, the local product management community. And a fun fact, Product Makers started 11 years ago as a local chapter of ProductTank. And yeah, ProductTank now grew to over 200 cities, and it's an honor to have Martin here, who started it all, who created ProductTank and many others. So we don't have too much time. I have two questions to kick things off, and then maybe we can take some other questions from the audience. My first question to you, Martin, is about your current focus. So you're a legend in the product management space. I'm not even kidding. Creating ProductTank is just, I think, one of the highlights. You've also started Wine the Product, the conference where you've been a speaker multiple times. You've had formal roles. You've been interim roles, advisor. So I'm just curious, with such an accomplished career, where are you investing your energy currently?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. And I think that whole career definitely led to a point where I was doing too much. And so I took a year off, which I was very lucky to be able to do. And now I'm back and I'm focusing on writing, or finishing, I should say, my next book, which is The Decision Stack.
Wow.
And that is very much a reflection on the last 5 to 10 years working with mainly startups, but also scale-ups. And I think consistently having this challenge of coming in and like, oh, we have a product problem, like, oh, our roadmap isn't working, or something like that. They would have me come in, and very quickly the conversation becomes, no, the problem is you don't have a strategy, you don't have this clarity, you don't have a vision, and then helping the founding team or the CEO or the C-suite with that. So that's what I'm trying to do, and that's where I'm focusing. And so I'm doing the book, I'm doing a little bit of advising for those kind of companies, and then I'm doing coaching for product leaders as well. That's
amazing. I had no idea you have another book coming up.
In progress.
Your first book is, it's a reference book for especially for product leaders. My second question, just to kind of build on your current focus right now, we are at How to Web, and there's a lot of startups here looking for investors and to potentially have discussions about funding rounds. And you have this experience with startups, and I'm curious, what advice would you have for founders here right now, especially since you made a case today for companies to have a bold vision, but how exactly can they strike a balance between having these bold, ambitious future plans, but at the same time have some concrete delivered bets which make them more investable?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think the challenge I laid out in the talk today was very much about being more ambitious. And I think in Europe, especially, we need to be more ambitious and have these big visions. And I think we've seen recently, in the last 30 days, 4 new unicorns minted in Europe in the AI space. Like, there's a lot of momentum. And so I think especially any founders now or any new startups now coming in, they can't just think, oh, we're going to do the same but better. We're going to build a better mousetrap. We're going to just incrementally innovate. You have to think bigger. You have to think about, what does this look like beyond SaaS? And I would also personally like to see more people thinking about the big problems that we have in the world, like hunger and energy and these big challenges that we have in front of us, and how can we innovate there. So obviously then, to your point, I think the challenge is, yes, you can have the big vision, and you should, but then how do you start thinking small? And I think it comes down to that. It's acting small while thinking big, and really focusing on what's one customer, what's one problem we can solve now, how do we do that in a way that hasn't been done before, whether it's with AI or completely new technology or new go-to-market or whatever, and then build on that. I think one of the biggest things I talk to teams about in strategy, that kind of step down from vision, is to think about it as a sequence, not a one and done, right? It's not a yes or no conversation. It's not a like, we're only doing this thing. It's like, well, first we're going to go after Romania, then we're going to go after EU, then we're, whatever that kind of adjacency is. Or first we're going to go after this type of user, then we're going to go after the next, whatever that sequencing is, that ultimately hopefully gets you to that big vision, that big end goal. So I think the more you can think about that, and the more you can show that, like, again, ventures today is very different from 5-6 years ago. They're looking a lot more at traction, and they're looking a lot more at actual success metrics. And so the more you can show that we have traction, we have solved this problem, we're super valuable, even if it's a tiny market or a tiny group of people that really love your product, they're paying for it, that's an amazing proof point. And then you can show that we think these are the next steps. Here's how we're going to de-risk that and go for growth, right?
Mm-hmm. And you kind of presented this tool, if I could call it like that, or a framework, the decision stack, and you're working on a book about it. Do you see it fit for early stage startups as well, or it's mostly something that
No, I think it really fits every size of organization, and I think it solves different problems in different sizes of organization. I think in the startups that I go into, so often what has happened is, maybe you don't need it if it's 3 or 4 founders sitting at a table and you all have a very good idea of what you're building, why you're building it, what's important. But as soon as you go beyond that, you start having your first few hires, you go past 10, 20 people, that clarity tends to disappear, right? The founders still have a pretty good picture of it, but the team that's actually building stuff kind of doesn't know. They're handed some tasks. It becomes very feature factory. And so even in that size of organization, I think it's really important to be very clear about where are we going, why is that important, how are we going to get there, what's the strategy right now, so that you have that transparency and the whole team can be part of it. As we talk about in product all the time, it's a team sport, right? So we want everybody to be involved in this conversation. And if you kind of separate out founders or C-suite from everyone doing the work, then that disconnect happens. And that's where it always breaks down. And that's, as you scale, it becomes even more of a problem, but it's still a problem in small startups, I find.
Amazing. I see that the audience grew a little bit, so I want to open it up to our guests here. If you have questions for Martin, feel free to raise your hands, and I'll echo it to the microphone so we have it on the recording as well. It's a very complex question. Yeah. So in an AI world, what are some of the symptoms? I lost. Yes. So startups like trailblazers changing the industry, not necessarily solving like a small niche problem.
Yeah, I think one of the big things for me is really rethinking the whole flow, right? I think you see, there's a good example of this. There was a startup in our portfolio at the venture company I worked for that they were already working with AI and ML, but basically they were trying to solve a specific problem for their customer. And their customers were basically people who do video shoots, right? And you end up with lots and lots of assets, and how do you then sort the assets? Which shots are you going to want to use for your film and everything? And that was the product, and it was being fairly successful, and it was growing. It was a good startup. And then when Gen AI came out, the founder himself kind of took it on himself to, hang on, how does this change the whole question, right? And instead of how can I do this better with AI, it was hang on, if we step back, are we even going to do video shoots anymore? Are we even going to, the customers were people like Polestar with their cars, right? They would fly a car to South Africa, then they film the car in South Africa, then they have all these assets. It's well, maybe they're not even going to need to do that. Maybe we can use AI to actually solve the customer problem, which is I need a video shoot, or I need a video. I don't even need the shoot. I need a video of my car in this amazing location. Well, AI can help solve that now from scratch, right? So I think it's looking at the whole user flow in a very different way than just I'm solving this problem doing amazingly. It's actually, I can solve the customer's problem in a completely different way that we didn't think about. So I think it's that kind of zoom out that I think answers the ambition question and really shows that someone's rethinking how an industry works as opposed to just, how do we take this one thing and do it better? It's actually wait, maybe we don't even need this whole thing. Maybe we don't need these middlemen. Maybe we don't need these 65 steps. We can just do it this way, right? And I think that's going to be very different in every industry, but I think that's a sign that someone's thinking very differently about it.
Awesome. More questions if you have. It sounded like you shouldn't necessarily optimize, things that are maybe outdated a little bit.
Yeah, look, I think there's definitely room still for, it kind of depends what journey you're on as well, right? I think there's nothing wrong with building, sometimes we talk about lifestyle businesses as if it's a bad thing. But if you're not taking in external investment and you can bootstrap yourself to a nice lifestyle business and you're solving a customer problem and they love your there's nothing wrong with that. And we can then use AI to do that better. But I think if you are on this ambition train, or if you're raising VC money, you need to think very differently about what you're trying to do and go for a different scale. And that's where I think optimizing or finding a small thing that you can do 10% better just isn't thinking big enough. We need to think 10x better, not 10% better.
Amazing. Claudia. Yeah, so how do you make sure in a team that everyone still remembers the mission and they're aligned?
This is a big part of what I'm trying to get across with the decision stack as a mental model, and I don't know that I have the perfect answer yet, but I think it is about remembering that basically we can't communicate these things too often, right? We literally can't repeat them too often. The CEO of LinkedIn recently said that when you are tired of hearing it is when people start hearing it. So you kind of have to remember that, and that's true for vision, that's true for strategy. And so my hack is usually to think about how can you integrate it into things that you're already doing, right? So existing ceremonies, whether it's stand-ups, whether it's all hands, demo days, like whatever you already have, like don't add meetings, but add little bits to each of those. Like, oh, as you remember, like our vision is X. So this week we're working on like just that little snippet just keeps it top of mind for everyone, keeps it connected for everyone. I still love like anytime you're a co-located team or if you spend time together, even if you're remote and you come together and spend time together, putting stuff up on walls, like having those visuals, like it really reminds people. But I think it's all the little things that build up to making it front and center for everyone and really helping people connect the dots again from the work they're doing every day to why we're doing it and why it's important.
Amazing. I think it's probably the last question that we have. Please.
Try to repeat that? Or so I guess the question was, how do we stay true to being customer-centric, even in a world where AI is sometimes trying to replace that or user research? And I think it's a balancing act, like everything with AI. I think we need to, as Arne said in his talk and his Q&A following up soon, as he said in his talk, I think it's finding that balance between how do we keep the things that are most important to us, but use AI to help us be more efficient. And I think there are things that we can do today with AI to, write scripts better or, synthesize results faster and things like that, as long as we still stay connected to it. Where I get a little nervous myself is when we start talking about, let's synthesize our AI audience and then do the research there. And I think, again, it's a balancing act. I think if we can do it in a way where maybe that's how we test, 1,000 prototypes very quickly, and then we still go do a proper user test with like the 5 that win, then that's a good thing, right? We've tested more things, we have some more evidence that it's a better option, but we still go test it with real users and real customers. I think that could potentially be really powerful, because one of the things I always hear, especially in a B2B environment, is we're not allowed to go talk to our customers, right? Like that gets in the way. So maybe there are ways that we can use it to get the results we need while still connecting the human. But for sure, I think for the foreseeable future, we have to keep the human in the loop. We have to do more research, not less. More testing, not less. And so we have to figure out how can we use AI to do that without, taking us out of that loop, basically. And that's not even like a defensive thing, I think. It's not about, protect my job or protect your job. I think it's just the better result, right?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Martin. Thank you everyone for the questions. We're at time. Where can the people here find you? For more questions or your work?
For more questions. So for now, I'm writing all of this in public, basically. So if you go to thedecisionstack.com, you can get the slides from today. I've written a lot more about all the levels of the stack. And there'll be a lot more. And it's all free right now, so just go get it. You can also reach out there if you want to chat to me about coaching or anything else. I'm there. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.